Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Train Aid podcast. My name is Nick, and in today's video, we are going to be investigating how to become a first aid trainer. I am joined by Ian Kershaw, MBE, who is the founder of the FAIB, the first aid industry body. So the purpose of the podcast today is a really popular topic. It's going to be investigating what you need to become a freelance first aid trainer and set up your own training organization. Ian, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm fine, Nick, and I appreciate being involved in this today because one of the things that I like is talking to people. As you know, every application from a training provider, I love talking to them because it helps me to get the background of these people, and it's easier for me rather than sending 50 emails to and fro. I get to the nitty-gritty because the basis of my system is about the quality of the trainers. So yeah, I welcome this, and hopefully, if it works, then I'm happy to do more in the future.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ian. So one of the most popular questions that we get here at Train Aid is how do I become a first aid trainer? So hopefully with today's podcast, we're going to answer all of the questions that you might have. So just on our agenda today, we're going to look at what qualifications do I need to become a first aid trainer. We're going to look at how do I register with an awarding body such as the FAIB, which is the first aid industry body. What certificates can I issue with the FAIB? Okay, so once you've joined an awarding body, how do I issue certificates when I deliver first aid courses? We're also going to be having a conversation about the membership fees. How do you begin as a first aid trainer? What equipment is required and where can you buy the equipment from? How do I stay up to date with first aid requirements? So how do I keep current with any developments within the industry? How do I advertise myself as a first aid trainer? So any marketing tips? And finally, what makes a good first aid trainer as well? So we're going to be having just a conversation about how to get started as a first aid trainer as well. Okay, so question number one, Ian, I guess, is what qualifications do I need to become a first aid trainer? That's one of the most popular questions we get here at Train Aid. So obviously, as the founder of the FAIB, and someone approaches you looking to become a first aid trainer, what qualifications do you look for any sort of new potential first aid trainer?
Okay, right. Well, the first thing just to say here is that we follow the HSE guidance document, which is the GEIS 3. So everything that we do follows the guidelines within that GEIS 3. And in terms of first aid trainer, there's two main things initially. One being a trainer has to have a first aid at work certificate, a current first aid at work certificate, and they have to have what is called a formal teaching qualification. Again, the HSE document, the GEIS 3, tells you the sorts of qualifications that are required. So we encourage people to have one of those qualifications. But one of the things that people are now heavily involved with is courses that I know Train Aid do, which is your level 3 in education and training. And we tend to find a lot of those people do have that qualification, but there is others that are out there. There's qualifications that relate to nurses that are acceptable, and there's all the qualifications like certificate in education, PGCE. But as I say, they're all listed on there, and it's indicative of what is available. So yeah, we keep in line with what the HSE guidance is in terms of that. So those are the qualifications that are needed. And then the other steps I think we'll look at in a little bit is what extra experience or background we need. But those are the qualifications initially.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ian. So initially you need a teaching qualification such as the level 3 award in education and training. And you also need the 3-day first aid at work certificate. Do they need any other first aid qualifications or is it just the level 3 first aid at work certificate and will allow for you to teach all different types of first aid courses.
Yeah, right. Okay, so that is the starting point, having
Yep.
those two qualifications. And then what I do, I will speak to any potential training providers who want to join FAIB. And I welcome that process, because I can ask questions about these people, because it's not just about having the two paper qualifications. It's more about, I want to know a bit about the background of that person, see what they've done in the past. Although, having said that, we obviously accept new people as well, but I will have that conversation. And if they've been involved in first aid in any way, shape, or form, particularly if they've done hands-on first aid, that's very useful to have as a first aid trainer, because you can cite examples that you've actually been involved. So what I look at is, what have they done particularly over the last 3 years? Because that's the kind of period we look at in first aid training. What have you done previously? And then once I've got an idea of that, then if it's an experienced trainer, we'd have a look at how many courses they've actually run in that period of time. And the absolute minimum for the future of a trainer is that they've got to run a minimum of 6 first aid courses each year.
Okay.
And the other thing that they would need to do is to be annually monitored. And I use the word monitored rather than IQA, but monitoring means that somebody would sit in with that trainer on an annual basis while they're actually teaching and write a report against them. So those are the two things that are required for somebody who has been established as a trainer previously. If you then look at new trainers, which I encourage new trainers, we do need new trainers in this industry. And the slight difference with the new trainers, they still need to have a first aid at work certificate, they need to have a teaching qualification. But then I look more on the verification of that trainer. And if I just say what the old HSE guidelines were, that every new trainer had to have verification on 4 first aid subjects, 2 practical and 2 theoretical. And this is something that is not always achieved by trainers. And I do look at this as being important. And when I talk to people and put it to them, they feel the same way, that just because they've got a teaching qualification and just because they've got an FAW, are they actually ready to teach? So I go a little bit more in depth into this. And as I say, the feedback I get is people are interested in that because they do want to be ready to teach. And once that has been achieved, that kind of verification process, then they feel themselves more confident in teaching.
Absolutely. I think that's very robust. Not only to gain the qualifications, is to stay current. And that's a fantastic approach to give lots of support and monitoring advice as well, to keep your expertise current. Fantastic. So the next question, I guess, is once you have, let's say, achieved your teacher training qualification, such as the level 3 award in education and training, and also you've gained your first aid qualification, such as the first aid at work qualification, is what are the next steps? So how do I go about registering with an awarding body such as the FAIB? What are the steps there? So if I'm ready to apply to the FAIB, how do I do that? Do I need to call or make an application on the website, or what's the process?
Okay, right. Well, like I've indicated in the last couple of minutes, I much prefer the personal touch. And we get inquiries through the website. They get passed to me, and then I always contact the individuals or the company and say, let's have a chat about what you're looking for, so that I get a picture of these people. You know, have you been doing first aid training before? Have you not? What are you looking to achieve? What sort of qualifications? So I will spend maybe up to an hour with these people, and it could be a Zoom call, it could be just a telephone call, but that's my approach. I prefer that, talking to the people, and the feedback I get is that they prefer it that way as well. Once that has been achieved, then I will then send out some paperwork about our standards, and we've got obviously various documents that relates to our standards. The main one is an administrative guidance document, which is about 28 pages. It's got everything in there. That will be sent out along with the registration forms. But what I'll say at this point is the focus of our system, FAIB, probably unlike others, is the focus is the quality of the trainers. I want to achieve quality trainers, and we have with FAIB now around about 450 training centres across the UK and some in Europe as well. And the basis of that is the quality of the trainers. We have different types of people. We have what we establish as lay trainers, which are people who come in with a qualification like an FAW and a teaching qualification. But we have professionals as well. And, you know, different types of professionals like paramedics, doctors, nurses, ex-military, police, firefighters. All those kind of people are interested in joining FAIB. And of course, the thing that these people have got is experience in obviously dealing with emergency situations. So there can be certain exemptions for these people in not having an FAW certificate, but they still need a teaching qualification. So that's the basis of what we do. We send out the paperwork. They will then send back to me the information, particularly that relates to the trainer or the trainers of that organisation. I will vet that information, and then I'll have a further conversation with people, and that will be about the kind of information they have to keep within their system. And it doesn't matter who the regulating body is, what every company has to have is the paperwork to show that on any first aid course they run, they achieve outcomes on every subject. That's the be all and end all. And the common thing across the regulators is that the course content is going to be the same wherever you go. It has to be the same because the adult first aid is within the HSE guidance document, so the content is laid down. So no matter which regulating body it is, that's the content you have to do. And linked in with that is the actual contact hours. Those are the two things that really HSE are now involved with, and nothing else apart from that. So those are the standards across the whole of the industry, no matter which regulating body you work with.
Yep.
That's for adults. And then for the paediatric side, it's the same sort of thing, but it's controlled by the Department for Education Early Years Foundation Stage documents, which again, the only real things they have in those documents, and there is now two documents that the Department for Education have, one that covers 1 to 5 years and one for childminders. But the things that's in those documents relate to the content of first aid courses, sorry, paediatric first aid courses and the contact hours. So those are the two standards that we set, whether it be adults or paediatrics. So that's where I come from. I get that information, as I say, that relates to the trainers. Once we've had these further conversations and people can ask me any more questions they want to, if they then decide they're ready for approval, it's at that point that we finalize things, and they are ready, because we don't send information out in relation to the lesson plans, the PowerPoints, the assessment papers, the multiple choice questions. They are there. We have all those, and they're all professional documents, but they're not provided to anybody until they make that decision that they're going to join up with us, and they will be paying the first year's annual fees at that point, and then they will get all that information at that stage.
Certainly, that's quite a robust approach, and it's great to hear that the candidates from different sectors, whether it's the police force, the public services such as the army, the doctors and nurses, can become first aid trainers and utilize their background and skills. So those skills are going to be taken into account in regards to the registration process. My next question is what certificates can I issue with the FAIB? So once you've joined with the FAIB and you start delivering your own first aid courses, what certificates can I issue with the FAIB? How does it work with certificates? Can you put, for example, your own company logo on there? How does it work in regards to the certificates? That's quite an interesting question I would like to ask.
Yeah. Right. Again, the first part of that answer is that we have to follow the HSE guidance document, the GEIS 3, because within that document it stipulates what has to be written down on the certificates. And when I say the GEIS 3, that is referring to the workplace first aid courses, because the ones that are governed by the government bodies, it's the first aid at work, the emergency first aid at work for adults, and for the Department for Education, paediatric the full paediatric course, and the emergency paediatric course. So those are the main certificates for the workplace. But in terms of FAIB, we do the combination courses. A lot of regulating bodies are doing the same thing. You can combine adults with paediatrics, every sort of combination. And the beauty of it is that when you combine courses, it actually reduces the contact hours that's needed because there is duplication of subjects. So to answer your question in terms of the certificates, we do a template of what's required. And obviously the one that's for the adults for first aid at work or emergency first aid at work, it's a set amount of information, which again is guided by the GEIS3. And basically you've got to put the details of the name of the person, the course title, the contact hours, the regulations. On the bottom, it'll be signed by the person from the company who's registered with us. They will have been given a HSE, sorry, not HSE, an FAIB approval number, and that will always be on the certificates they will issue under the jurisdiction of FAIB. And then on the bottom, it'll show our accreditation through the ISO 9001 2015 accreditation process. And all of that, in terms of the regulated courses, so the FAW, EFAW, all that information will be on there. In terms of the combined courses, because they're not directly under the regulation, there's a slightly different format on those certificates, but they're still valid in the workplace and they do work. And just to give you a very quick example, if you combined an FAW course with a full paediatric course, you'd be totaling 18 hours for the adults and 12 hours for the paediatric, which is 30 hours. And it's quite common in places like schools, they want the combination. So you can actually do the course combined in 22 hours. So you reduce it by quite a few hours, but that's because it's a combined course and there's a duplication of subjects and it fits the purpose of a school or somebody. So that is allowable in terms of FAIB, and you'll see on the website that we've got quite a few of these courses that you can put. There's any combination really that you can do. So that's the adult courses, and then pediatric side, there is no definitive guidance of what should be on a pediatric course from the Department for Education, but I've made our own template which covers things like the early years foundation stage document, which we follow because it mentions about the content of the courses and the contact hours. So that's why we use it. So it's a standard template that we'd use for that. So that's how we go about it. There is quite a few courses. We have templates of all the certificates. And you asked the question about can they kind of personalize those certificates? And the answer is yes, they can.
Okay.
So the information that I've given there covers what has to be on there. But the company will put their own information on. We have a template and we can check the information. So they will put the company name on the top. They will have a unique license number, as I call it, which will be on the bottom, and that will be on every certificate. So if there was any issues that came back to me, then I could find out which that company was by the name and by the actual license number that will be on the bottom of the certificate. So there is consistency in that way of what we try to achieve.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ian. That's great to hear that you can personalize the certificates as well. My next question is, what are the membership fees per year? So if a new first aid trainer wanted to join the FAIB and is just wondering about the membership fees per year in order to obviously deliver your own courses and issue your own certificates, can you sort of tell us about the membership fees or the costs required to do that, if that's okay?
Yeah. I mean, I followed quite a simple process here, and it is very similar to the time that I spent as head of first aid at HSE. And what I've tried to do, and this is kind of one of the things that I put out there, is that I want to make sure that first aid is affordable, because my philosophy is that I want as many people trained in first aid. You know, the more people we train, the better it is, and I want to keep the prices down, and that's what I've tried to do in terms of our accreditation. And when you look at the fees that we charge, they're not dissimilar to what HSE charged many years ago. In fact, I've only increased the price once in probably the last 10 years. So what I do is we charge annual fees, and the current annual fee is £350. These figures I'm going to give are exclusive of VAT. So £350 per year. And in the first year, it's £100 registration fee. And that's because I need to talk to people, I need to check paperwork, etc. And what we ask for is a commitment of 5 years, which again relates to what HSE used to do when they were in charge. It was like a 5-year license. The difference is with HSE, you had to pay 5 years up front because I'm trying to consider costs, etc. I allow members to pay each year that fee. So, but I asked for that commitment that they stay with us for 5 years in that time because we have costs over that length of time, that period of time. So those are the two initial fees, and the annual fee they will pay each year, £350 each year for 5 years. And the only extra fee in terms of the registration will be a trainer fee, because what we have with companies will register as an organisation, which allows them to issue certificates. But we also ask that every trainer that works for that company has to register. So it might well be that initially there's only one trainer that registers. There might be some more, but usually one person. But when they maybe get bigger, the organisation, any new trainer that they use, they have got to register as well. And the cost of that registration is simply £20 per year. So those are the two fees that are involved. The only other fee, while we're just talking about fees, is that I follow the same process in terms of actual, what I use the word monitoring. We have inspectors who monitor the training providers, and we set a period of that during that 5-year cycle, they will be monitored once by one of our inspectors, and there's the cost of that of £300. And again, that process is exactly what happened under HSE. They sent inspectors out, and a report is written, which I verify during that period of time.
Thank you so much, Ian. That is very clear, and that's great to hear that there is a 5-year commitment. So anyone who is looking to become a first aid trainer, that's great to hear that you are supporting them for that long period, because anyone who wants to go into first aid training, it is a commitment. It's a career. So that's great to hear that they are going to be supported for that length as well. A common question that we do get asked is about first aid equipment, really, and just how to get started. So I'm just wondering, so what advice can you give to someone who wants to begin as a first aid trainer? So for example, what insurance do they need, if you know of that, if the answer to that question, any advice on where to buy equipment from, so if there's any websites or any resources that you think are important for any new first aid trainer, where they can access, or are there sort of any industry certified equipment that they should be using? If there's any advice on that, that'll be excellent.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, I spend a lot of time talking to individuals who are trainers, but obviously they become training providers. And just to make it clear that under our system, a trainer can register on their own as a standalone trainer. There's no issue with that. But the difference is that as a standalone trainer, they're not allowed to issue FAIB certificates. They have to be a training provider, because obviously the fees are just totally different. So they have to be a training provider to issue the certificates. And one thing I didn't mention earlier on, but the difference with our system is that we allow people, again, as it was under HSE, we allow training providers to actually issue their own certificates. So there's no cost involved in that side of it. And as I say, I do talk to a lot of trainers, and I do get some questions. A lot of them might well have already bought the equipment, but yeah, I do get asked questions, and we do have relationships with companies, in particular one, DFIB Warehouse, who we've got a relationship with, where I can get equipment for trainers. I encourage them to use us to buy equipment. So we have things like you need for a first aid at work course or an EFAW course would be mannequins. That's probably one of the main things. And again, we follow the guidance that's out there in terms of mannequins, and the ratio, even though it's not written down in law, the ratio that people are aware of is 1 mannequin to 4 people on a course. So, and then you've got to consider whether you need junior or baby mannequins as well. And it just depends what area the people are going to go into at the end of the day. But yeah, we can help with that kind of equipment. People can speak to me about it, and I'm quite happy to give advice. The other thing that people probably will get involved with will be trainer DFIBs as well, which obviously are part of courses they have to be now. So again, similar thing with that. And then perhaps the main thing that I talk to trainers about is about books that we have. And we have our own range of first aid books. So I absolutely do encourage people to buy books. And yeah, because it's FAIB, I want them to buy our books. But at the end of the day, the feedback that we get, we've got all this technology these days, online stuff, digital books. But the feedback that I actually get is that people prefer a hard copy book, even today. Particularly because you've got to remember the demographics. There's a lot of people in this industry who are not youngsters, if I use that terminology anymore. So they're interested in books, and we compete. There's obviously other people out there that sell books. We compete on price for that. So that's a big part of the business. We do encourage people to buy that, and we are competitive out there. And the big thing about it with our books is that they can be personalised as well at no extra cost. So and we have periods of time that we do all the personalisation towards the end of a month. So people can buy the books, and they can personalise them in the way that they want. So the front and back covers are exactly their book. And it's just our information that's inside. So we've got that. In terms of insurance, I don't tend to get involved in what people actually need in terms of insurance. It's not my area. But I do have an insurance company that from the very beginning when we got that still work with us, and they offer insurance at reasonable prices. And people speak to me. I can talk to them and get them information. But at the end of the day, quite a few people just go on the open market because there is so much competition for insurance, and there's a lot of things that are cheap out there. But you just got to be aware of going too cheap in a way. That it covers what you need, particularly if you have contracts with like local authorities. They're talking about cover of up to £10 million. So you might get something that's cheap, but it may not cover 10 million. So you've got to look at the small print, really. So, but that's probably as much as I would get involved with the insurance side at this stage.
No problem. Thank you so much, Ian. It's great to hear that the hard copy books can be like personalized as well. On our first aid courses, we like to give out a hard copy book, and the delegates will put their first aid handbooks in their own first aid kits as well. So it's there. It's a great resource to have. Absolutely. Thank you so much. I guess the next question is all about staying current. So how do I stay up to date with first aid requirements? So once you become a first aid trainer and you're delivering your courses, and I'm just wondering how do you get your first aid trainers to kind of stay current with the latest developments within sort of first aid? So how do you ensure that your first aid trainers are staying up to date with their knowledge and keeping up to date with the latest requirements with sort of first aid?
We FAIB are part of a working group called the First Aid Quality Partnership, first of all. That partnership was set up when HSE pulled out. It was part of the requirements from the Ofsted review of HSE. And we are there with other regulating bodies. We have meetings about every quarter. And one of the people represented there is the UK Resource Council. So we're obviously in touch with what goes on. In terms of updates, because the Resource Council in the main are involved with resuscitation, but they're tending to get involved with some other things now, which I don't think is a bad thing in itself, because it's a body that's kind of neutral in this industry. So that doesn't bother me. But at the end of the day, what people have to appreciate is, and this is despite lots of things that get put on social media, protocols in first aid do not change very often. And the resource guidelines are roughly every 5 years. And I mean, if things do change, and again, you hear rumors that all sorts of things are going to happen, and when they do happen, nothing has changed hardly. But when it does happen, we'll be the first to get the information out there in terms of what is going on. In terms of other protocols, there's different opinions on lots of things, and probably one of the pet hates I've got is that the regulating bodies don't kind of work together enough. So there is a bit more consistency. And I personally feel that the First Aid Quality Partnership is probably the place where this should happen more than what it does. So you will get different opinions on different things out there. And there's nothing to say that one is, more right than another one. And that's how it is in this industry. How it's been since the regulations began, and it's probably going to carry on for the next few years. But we will let people know if things change with particularly HSE or Department for Education, Ofsted. We will let people know. But if new medical devices and things are introduced, people are marketing it, then you've got to be very careful on things like this. And we will not put any promotion or anything like that unless we know it's been granted a license and whatever it might be through the relevant bodies that are out there. But anything that does change, yeah, we're the first to let people know. And one of the things that we do each year is have conferences as well. There'll be one this year in October. It's going to be up north this year, but next year we're looking at maybe two, one north and one south as well. And we get good feedback from these, and it gets people a chance, to ask questions about anything that they're concerned about, whether it be administrative in first aid or whether it be first aid protocols. And I get my advisory panel, which I've got about 6 people on the advisory panel. We've got paramedics and people like that. So they're the technical experts. And if people ask questions, and it's like I've been saying, people have heard something that might have been changing. Well, you can get it from the horse's mouth. They will say, well, no, it's a rumor. This is not going to happen, or it is going to happen. So we keep people up to date as much as we can. And I welcome, communication at any time if people want to ask me anything. And like I said, I prefer a phone call, but people will put it in an email and we'll give an answer. So that's just an ongoing process all through. I ask people, don't be frightened of asking us questions, because we'll answer them as much as we can. And if we haven't got an answer about a particular thing, we'll find out and get back to you.
Yeah, no, that's a great approach. I think it's fantastic that you've got lots of time for anyone who is looking to become a first aid trainer, and also your current trainers, and giving them lots of support and advice with the latest updates within the industry. A common question really is how do I advertise myself as a trainer? So when setting up your own sort of first aid training business, I guess a lot of people are really, really excited when that happens, and they think, how can I get my name out there? How can I approach excuse me, different industries and companies? I always say, make yourself a website if you can, an Instagram page, marketing yourself as a first aid trainer. You can provide flyers to sort of dental GPs, primary schools, secondary schools, offices, just to go out and give flyers out to kind of like promote yourself. And obviously that's a typical way of obviously getting yourself out there. But I'm just wondering if you've got sort of any advice on how to advertise yourself as a first aid trainer to kind of generate more sort of course bookings. Are there any sort of advice or areas you can advise for anyone who's sort of new to first aid training?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably not a lot more than what you've actually said, Nick, there, in terms of what people can do. It is the normal things, but people come to me and they say it's hard to get a business set up, and I say, well, I'll help you. It's not hard. what I'm looking for is that you're the right person to be in this industry, and I'm checking you out for your credibility. And once I've done that, what I will say to people is that, yeah, all the things that you've mentioned, it could be a website, it could be Instagram, it could be Facebook, that's used a lot. Um, we can't market you in terms of individual people. What we can do is we have on our website the names of all our organisations, and what we encourage people to do is to put a link from them to us and us to them, so that if somebody, and they're all based on geographical areas, you've got to be careful of GDPR regulations, etc. But we put them all on there, and if there's a link on there and a company wants an organisation in a particular geographical area, they can just click into that company and go straight into their website. So that's how we do it generally with that. And the trainers, in the same way, again, careful about the GDPR regulations, but we put the trainer's name on there. We don't put any, obviously, address details. We put the geographical area. And again, if they're interested in looking for work, we can put a link to their personal email address. So we give them credibility as far as the industry is concerned, because we check them out to make sure they fulfill the criteria. We put them on there. And more recently, we've introduced our own Facebook page, which has been signed up by quite a lot of people these days. And within that Facebook page, we have vacancies for trainers, etc. So people can actually pick up work, and that's absolutely free. There's no charge for that. So that happens, and that's fairly recent. So people can sign up to that, whether it be a training organisation, an individual trainer. But what we've always done in the past for work for trainers is send requests out, and we get lots of requests because we're, the size of the organisation. People are always looking for a trainer within our fraternity, and we put an advert out there for the people. We just put the basic details. We don't get involved in the cost whatsoever. I'm not interested in cost, nothing to do with me. We just put the details of what course it is, the geographical location of the town, and the dates of the course, and people just apply for it. And I've just seen one that's come in this morning, an email. We put an advert out yesterday, and the lady concerned, I was amazed, within 2 hours, you circulate it, and I got a trainer. And that's how it works. We do get people. So, we are getting work for our members by these different routes at the end of the day. So we're not actually marketing them per se. They've got to do their own marketing, but
Yeah.
we're giving them credibility. And FAIB is getting a good name in social media by what we're doing. We have got good standards, we've got good people, and we're circulating work out there so people can get something out of it.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic to hear. Once again, with all sort of new first aid trainers, I encourage them to have a LinkedIn profile, and just to just email out your your services, to organisations, to offices, to schools. So just send those inquiry emails with your rates of pay. So as a new first aid trainer, you set your own rates of pay and services. And yeah, no, that's fantastic to hear that you have that website with obviously the different first aid trainers and where they're based as well. Fantastic. I guess the final point for today is what makes a good first aid trainer. So obviously that is key, because obviously if you deliver a good first aid course, obviously first aid certificates, they typically last 3 years. So if you deliver a good first aid course, the organization will most likely come back and book you in to deliver another good course as well. So you're building lots of relationships with different providers, different organizations. So you're filling up your calendar as a first aid trainer. But I'm just wondering, just from your own experiences, what makes a good sort of first aid trainer in your eyes?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would probably, again, like I probably alluded to earlier on, there's two categories. You've got people who are established in the business,
Of course.
and you've got new trainers. People who are established, I think they know themselves what the requirements are, and basically they've got to be regularly running first aid courses to maintain their competence. They've obviously got to, if they are a lay trainer, they've got to renew their first aid certificates every 3 years. They've got to run a minimum of first aid courses. And probably the big thing in that category within FAIB is I encourage people to spend more time on the practical subjects of first aid. And hopefully, because there's not as much paperwork to deal with, they can spend more time on CPR, wounds and bleeds, unconscious casualty. Because for me, that's where people are going to learn more than anything else. When you're in a real life situation, then you want people who, I use two words, not just competent, but confident. And for me, that comes from spending as much time as you can on the practical elements of the course. You have got to cover the theory, we know that, but I encourage people to spend a lot more time. And that comes, I think, naturally to the established trainers. So for them, I think that they've got a good ground, they know what they're doing, but they continue running courses. For new trainers, it's slightly different because, like I alluded to earlier on, that they're new to the industry. They're not sure, what it's all about. I give them as much help as I can to encourage them to say, it's not difficult to create your own business at the end of the day. I'll give you all the tools in terms of first aid. But what I do want to see from you is that word practice, practice, practice. We do provide the materials, particularly PowerPoint, but what I don't want to see is death by PowerPoint. It's a tool to use when you need to use it. And for the new trainers, I probably spend a lot more time. They will come back to me, talk to me more and more than an established trainer because they want more information. And what I see first aid being, it's a simple subject in essence, and I want it to be taught that way, so that they've got the skills to teach it. They do the practical elements of the course, and then we get first aiders who are dead keen to treat a casualty when they come across them. So, yeah, I just see there's two categories. Established trainers, they know a lot about it themselves, but for new trainers, I'll give them as much help as they need and train them the right way because a new trainer is a new trainer. They're going to take many years to become a competent trainer, but the more they train, the better they're going to become. And it's important in the aspects of the quality assurance that they get feedback from the end of course evaluation forms, so they know that if there's any areas where they need to improve, they can improve. But like I say, I'm always here. Our team is always here to help them if they want any advice and guidance. So I think we do help them as much as we possibly can.
Of course, and I think that's absolutely key as a new trainer is to read your learner evaluation forms and to take on board the comments and how you can become a better trainer. It's all about experience, as you say, and obviously the courses that you deliver are both theory and practical, interesting courses, and like you say, not sort of too PowerPoint heavy as well. Okay, fantastic advice there. Well, that is really the end of our podcast on how to become a first aid trainer. Obviously, this page here, we've got lots of our different avenues. So we've got the first aid industry body website and contact number. We also have the train aid contact number as well, and our YouTube channel, Instagram pages with our latest sort of courses and developments. Ian, is there any sort of further advice or anything you would like to get off your chest? Anything to add to our podcast today before we call it a day here today?
No, I think I've covered what I need to cover today. I've actually enjoyed this process, and I would just encourage people to, if they want to join FAIB or they want any advice about FAIB, that they will speak to me personally. I can guarantee that, even if initially it might be an email they send in. I always pride myself in talking to individuals because for me that is the way forward. I don't just want to communicate via email. I want to talk to people, and I get more out of it. I enjoy it. That's the kind of thing that I enjoy doing. And for me, it gets out information that you probably wouldn't even get out from correspondence via email. So yeah, I just want people to get in touch with us. And if there's any questions about anything, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time today, Ian. We will be, of course, writing a blog for this to support what's being covered. We'll also include the links and all of the equipment links, as you said. We'll include everything within the blog as well. Everyone, thank you so much for watching. Please do like the video and subscribe to the channel to receive the latest news and alerts from TrainAid and also the FAIB as well. Ian, thank you ever so much for your time today, and we do hope to see you on one of our future podcasts as well. But thank you ever so much for your time, Ian.
Yeah, thanks, Nick.
Thank you.